Welcome to the FPL USA Press Play Podcast. I'm Bux. I'm joined by my co-host Brian, and we are all set to chop it up tonight. But we first and foremost want to send our best wishes to our other co-host Black Wolf, who is recovering right now from a small procedure. We wish him best of health, and we know that he's prioritizing himself, which is not selfish. It is the right move. So in his place, we have a warm bum chair to be filled, and that is going to be filled by an even better manager than Black Wolf, one might say. And that is our guest tonight. Welcome, Ryan, aka Fabrizio Raiano, to the podcast for his second guest appearance. Ryan, how we doing?
Thanks, guys. It's good to be back. Definitely, bummed to keep missing Black Wolf every time I participate, but excited to be back with you guys.
You're a very worthy bench substitution, and we're excited to chat with you because you're having a really great start to the year as well. I believe you're first or second in FPL leagues in the silver tier. Is that correct?
Yeah, I ended up right at the top of the table this time for game week
Boom.
3, and yeah, I'll take it. Been up in the top 5 or right around it the whole time so far. It's a good start.
Yeah, we love to see it, and it's well deserved for you, Ryan. I have to say that this is going to be tough for my pronunciation skills here with a Brian and a Ryan in the chat. Brian, how we doing?
All good, all good. It's very, very sweaty out here on the Southern California coast. It's like 95 degrees today. Scorcher, but spent the last couple of days at the beach. And man, one of the most underrated feelings is going to the beach, putting that sunscreen on, going for a dip. And then when you come home, you have that shower beer while taking that cleansing shower. Oh, it's such a good feeling after being in the sun. So I'm in good spirits and very much just so fucking bored of international break. I mean, these games are trash. Nobody cares about them. Let's just fast forward to a couple days from now when we have the deadline.
Totally agree. Not to be a cold plunge, but we are all ready for the first international break to be in the rearview mirror. With that, let's give a quick recap of where we stand. I mean, the season has barely gotten started and we're already on break, which is a huge bummer. But it's not a bummer for managers who are flying in the rankings like you, Ryan. So why don't you kick us off? Recap how your season is going through the first 3 game weeks.
Yeah, and especially what's gone right for you in terms of your game week 1 picks. I think that's a big differentiator between a lot of people who had hella fires to put out. So I'm very curious to see where you found success.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely went in a little differential. I mean, I know everybody was in the Sala or Holland camp, like what's the right play? I went with both because they're proven. And with the offseason that everybody had, I kicked it off that way. But really, I think for everybody, the difference is in all the other players. I mean, there's no matter what you did, whether it was just one or the other, or if you went both, the other 9 players plus your bench still matter too. And I've been fortunate to get a few good picks going off of that, and haven't been afraid to make a couple moves, and they haven't fully paid off yet. But it's early days still. But yeah, so I'm sitting right up around 80K now, which is a fantastic start to the season, one of my best ever. Which I love when I get a season rolling in the right direction. So yeah, I mean, that's really where I'm sitting right now. I feel like I'm in a position of strength kind of no matter how I pivot. I'm not fully settled one way or another yet, but I'm not against taking early moves or trying to take a little bit of a risky move here and there. I mean, that was something that I know we talked about last year too a little bit, but this year feels like a good year to make some of those moves, but I definitely am not hitting wildfires yet.
It's great. Yeah, you started your season in cracking form, and going with both of the big hitters, Holland and Salah, has paid major dividends for you, and deservedly so. You're top of FPL USA League's silver tier. Bravo to you. Brian, let's go to you next.
The quest for gold. The quest for gold. We're rooting for you, Ryan. Friends of the pod, we always want to see get promoted to the next tier of our hashtag FPL USA leagues. So gotta love that. That's a good start and a good feeling to set the table for the rest of the year.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you guys. And yeah, I mean, after a couple rough seasons, and this one's finally paying off after what I had a really, really good Bundesliga season last year. So I'll take that one instead, I guess.
It all counts, and you're doing much better in the table than Man United, the team you support, is. So you could take that to heart and
Fair.
run all the way
Fair.
to the bank.
He went there. He went there early, and he's going to go there often, is what I have a sense of in this pod.
I would bet the same.
No quarter and no promises. Brian, how's your season going so far?
Yeah, we're chilling right now. We're at 420K, 42.0. Shout out there. I've used no chips and no transfers. So I got 3 transfers burning a hole in my pocket and really just trying to figure out if I'm going to wild card in game week 4, game week 6, game week 8. But I have some transfers. My defense is pretty shite at the moment, though. I got Barco and Hall on my bench. So if I receive an injury, I'll definitely have to use a transfer. But I've prioritized saving those transfers and not using them on defenders. You know, I could have gone early for Rico Lewis, for example, and I just sat tight with the guys that I had. So really really shaping up to be a halfway decent year. I think figuring out whether I'm going to use 2 transfers to bring in Salah this week is a big one. But I'll be able to do that for free and still have one rolled. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. But for now, let's go over you to Bux. You've used some chips, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm the messy man in the middle right now of your 2 ranks. I'm at 330K overall, and I've used some performance enhancers, so to speak, with chip usage with the triple captain's armband going to Erling Haaland against Ipswich. That came really good for my team. And right now I have my wild card for game week 4 activated. So like you, Brian, I think I'm operating from a position of strength. But as we've discussed, all 3 of us before, I like to operate and play my own game whenever possible. And I'm really doing it this season. I have some transfers in the bank. So rather than waiting for my team to be a complete clusterfuck, I just hit the wild card chip and I'm going for it because I just realized that there's so many ways to play it, even more so this season. And I'm just going to be bold and back my own strategy to try and pip a top finish, let alone try and win the whole goddamn thing for FPL USA.
Well, Bucks, I will say you are 3 points ahead of me in the overall point totals, and that is a difference of 90,000 in the rank. So that's something else to just keep in mind. Even if you're at 2-3 million, everybody is bunched up by under 25 points. So you really have a lot of upside to chase over the remaining 35 game weeks, 34 game weeks. There's so much footy to be played. It's a marathon in FPL, not a sprint. But if you can sprint well from game week to game week, you'll definitely be towards the top of the table.
Amen to that. And before the pups all start barking at the moon here, let's transition to talk about what's been going on the last week or so, which is this never-ending international break, the most pointless break in the history of professional footy because no one's asking for it, no one's watching it, and no one wants it. And it's definitely not fair to the players. So I think the big takeaway so far is some of the scratches. And this is good for FPL managers to know. Ollie Watkins, Cole Palmer. There's been a number of really top FPL players who have been pulling themselves out of contention for this kind of Nations League mumbo jumbo bullshit. And most notably today, we saw a big injury for Arsenal supporters to know about, which is Martin Odegaard going down with what looked like a pretty scary ankle injury. So just word to the wise for Arsenal fans and for those who have Odegaard in their team. It's nice to see FPL players like Bruno Fernandes coming out scot-free, having some good form for Portugal. Ryan, did you get to catch any of the footy that was on this international break, or have you been spending quality time with your family instead?
I think it's more like quality time with my work computer. But I've been watching a little bit here and there, but nowhere near how much I'd want to. I've been catching a little bit of clips. I saw some of the Gyökeres goals for the Sweden game today. Those are fantastic. Definitely excited about that. I know that we're going to get to Isak here in a second. Of course, just kind of popping in and popping out on some of the highlights more than anything. I haven't had the time nor the care for this international break. I usually do care, but not this time, to be honest. It's too soon.
Not to mention we had NFL kickoff. So that actually coincided pretty well for me as a diehard NFL fan as well. Bucks and I have been hopefully lining our bank accounts with a few extra shekels for the kits we need to buy later on in the season. But that's
No
been
comment.
nice to have some reprieve from the lack of actual Premier League games. But boys, we have a deadline around the corner. So I think let's jump into it. Let's talk about some of our favorite matches of the upcoming game week 4 and where we think we're going to see the most FPL points. So maybe the lads, the Red Devils of
Yeah, let's
Mr.
look at
Ryan.
this. Ryan, you thought I was going to slag you all episode, but my first pick for the biggest match to target for FPL hauls goes to your Red Devils, who are traveling to Southampton. Two woeful sides playing each other. I'm sure everyone will like to gouge their eyes out by the end of the 90 minutes, but there might be FPL points for some lucky managers in the mix here. What's our prediction? Are we going to see a dominant Manchester United performance, or are the Eric 10 frauds going to get their comeuppance? What do we think here? Ryan, take the reins. Get me off my high horse here.
See, I was expecting you to say that this was a favorable match for Southampton when we saw this on the lineup. No, I do think it is a good fixture for United to kind of find some footing. I think Ugarte coming back into the side as a new signing on deadline day, I think that's a huge thing. We all saw all the conversation around Casemiro after the first half of the Liverpool game. And I've pointed out many times that this is not just a Casemiro issue, but he is definitely an issue at this point. And I think injecting some more energy, some more tempo, a more bulldogish midfielder, I think it will help invigorate a little bit in that space and help Manu out a little bit to be a little bit more creative. Hopefully free up BruNO as well. And we have, players like Højlund and, kind of back in training. So who knows, maybe he even gets some minutes back in this one too. But I think this is a game that you can expect, United, hopefully, not that we can ever bank on anything with United anymore, but I think this one is a chance that United finds a little bit of footing. I think Xerxes stands a really good chance in this one, BruNO as well. But yeah, we'll definitely see. I'm excited to see hopefully a good side turn up though.
Ryan, we're going to put you on the spot here. What's your prediction for this match on the scoreboard?
Let's go 2-1.
That's it. This Southampton team gives up big chances for fun. You would think you might be able to bag even a 3 spot.
Yeah, but we've created some big chances for fun and we still haven't finished them. The issue there, though, I think while it could be a 3 or 4 kind of scoreline for United, it can just as easily be a 1-1 or 2-2. Unfortunately, with how we've been playing, so it is a really hard one to call. Southampton, I thought on the first match day as well. I mean, they played Newcastle, right? I thought that they actually turned up much better than we expected, but I don't think that that's been the Southampton we've seen for the last 2 weeks either. So they made a lot of good signings. I'm very bullish on the signings that they made if they do go back to the championship, but can they step up to the Premier League level? I think that's what we're all still waiting to see fully.
Great analysis. I think it's 2-0 to your team, Ryan. I'll give you proper flowers here. I think Onana finally gets his head on right and keeps a clean sheet. And that's going to be huge for Man United as they look to build some consistency into the season. I was shocked by their place in the table. They are all the way towards the very bottom. That is not where a team with big six ambitions and pedigree of being really the best team in England should ever find themselves. So that is a disaster. And Southampton, they have looked to be one of the whipping posts of this FPL season. They're conceding shots like crazy. And I think this is a big game for Bruno Fernandes managers. If you've kept the faith, he could return his first double-digit haul of the season, let alone a haul at all. So I think there's optimism there.
Bucks, if you whip a post, does the post even feel it?
It depends. It depends. I think United fans are feeling it more than the club itself. And Southampton fans are definitely going to feel it as they take the roller coaster ride back down to the championship after the season.
We'll call them the whipping boys of the Premier League, not the whipping posts.
I would say, though, if there's ever a game for United to find their footing early in the season, this is the one to do it. So if we can't get it together in this one, I think Ten Hag is in real danger of getting sacked early. So it's a make or break kind of game for us, I think.
That's fair, but he has more trophies than Arteta, and that guy's not on the hot seat. Let's go to the next match. Ipswich at Brighton. Holy cannoli. This, as a manager on Wildcard, this is probably the invitation to points in my Wildcard draft. I think Ipswich, they've been plucky, but they have definitely not been impressive. And Brighton, on the other hand, have been like shot out of a cannon. I think they've been underrated and one of the most impressive teams in all of the Premier League to start the season. 3-0 to the home team. I think the Seagulls, they're going to find tons of trash on this beach and eat it all up.
I think the big thing here that many managers are waiting to find out is what's happened with João Ladro. He gets the late call up to the Brazil national team. Good for the young fella, but is he going to be back in time to start? Because a lot of us, well, mainly me, and then a lot of other FPL managers are really eyeing up a transfer of Isak to either João Ladro or Welbeck, and then Saka up to Salah for this tasty run of game week 4 and 5, where Liverpool plays 2 home matches. So what do you guys think there? I know you're on Wildcard, Bucks, so we'll discuss that later, but I'm curious on Ryan's thoughts about what the best assets are at Brighton. Go ahead, brighten my day.
I was gonna say this is a very underrated Brighton side. I know that there's a lot of excitement, but just to me, I think that they actually may have been the best transfer window overall for the Premier League. I have a lot of respect for what they did. They've made some fantastic signings. Minta is the exact player that Newcastle need right now, and they don't have him. So,
True.
things like that. I think that Brighton is fantastic. And I think that this is a game that, while I really do like what Ipswich has done and what McKenna's doing over there, I think that this is a team that's just going to get steamrolled. I do expect like a 4 or 5-0 kind of game for Brighton in this one. And little precursor, I actually moved Isak to João Pedro before the international break, before the call up. But I'm not honestly that worried because he's probably not going to get many minutes, if any, and he's coming back. What is it? Wednesday morning, I think, is when their game is UK time. So it does leave some time for him to get back into the side.
I have to agree. Brighton is looking good, and mainly because they got the stench of that fraud out of their club. You know who I'm talking about, Bucks. Good riddance. I'm glad Mr. De Zerbi is out of here.
Yeah, you have a bone to pick with Roberto De Zerbi.
He was fucking with my shit all last season. I was not happy with him as a owner of a few Brighton assets, and then he torched it and overrated to the highest degree.
Yeah, he's found his level with Mason Greenwood. He's yuck finds yuck, so to speak.
I'm just surprised that you guys didn't get him at Chelsea still, to be honest. I mean, you just keep buying Brighton piece by piece, so why not add him into the mix too?
Twist the knife.
Touche.
I think Chelsea is going to have a problem with your commentary that Brighton's have the best window, but we'll let that lie here on the cutting room floor. Next up,
you can have Sancho. It's fine.
All right, fair shout. Forest at Liverpool. I think if we think Brighton are going to batter Ipswich, we have to have commiserations for Forest fans across the UK because this could get ugly real quick. I think you said 4-5-0. I think this could be 5-0 pretty comfortably for Liverpool under the slot man.
I think NFL are going to put up a little bit of resistance, but it definitely will not be enough. This is 3-0. I think they'll take the foot off the gas a little bit and probably get in some of their subs in towards the 65th minute. So I think with Champions League, again, around the corner, that's a big data point that I'm thankful to have my wild card in my pocket still, just to see where there's going to be rotation for some of these top teams, and Liverpool being one of them. We know Mo is going to be nailed on the right for Premier League matches, but the left wing, Diaz, has been playing out of his mind. Will there be some rotation with Jota? So those are definitely questions for all managers, but I would love to have a triple up of Liverpool assets for game week 4 and 5 and even 6 and beyond. So what do you guys think there?
Liverpool are the team for FPL that are jumping off the screen as being the clear essential triple up targets. Ryan, do you have any standouts from Liverpool other than Salah, who's just hauling the points in for your squad?
I mean, I'm on Jota, and I do still have a third Liverpool spot left open, and this is where I've been really debating on actually taking a hit this week or even potentially triggering the wild card early. And I still haven't been fully decided on it. I think, honestly, though, I think Luis Diaz is one of the ones to really look at. International break, though, I'm not sure how that's working out with him in Colombia, so I'm not really too worried about it. And then I think, of course, Trent Robertson, I think you have to put them in that category too. There's so many threats there. Jota's looked fine, but I'm not fully convinced either. Yeah, I'm not sure really where to bank on assets in this game, though, besides Salah. I think that's by far and away the most clear and obvious one to have. And then if you have Trent, I think that's a fantastic pick in this one too. Score wise, I don't know where I'm sitting on this one. Maybe 3-0. I think I'm going to go with you on that one, Brian.
Yeah, Trent has been phenomenal so far. He's coming off early, locking in those clean sheets, but he hasn't had that goal or assist. I mean, that could have been last week versus United if Mo wasn't in the way. So I think he's due for a big haul in one of these games. And I think just looking at the value that he can provide as your maybe even your main Liverpool asset, where we're going to have spells where we go without Mo for stretches, I think he's going to be delivering us some really good value. And under slot right now, they're just very well organized. They're controlling the ball a bit more, not playing as many risky balls over the top, and it's just helping them retain more control of the game. And those clean sheets are rolling in so far. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple. A lot of people on Wildcard are even thinking about going with Robbo plus Trent and then having Mo as captain. So you can't fault that either. I think they've looked really solid.
What do you think about the comments that Mo made after the last game about his contract and how there's been no talks around it? Last year of contract, Salah feels like a really hungry and point to prove Salah. I think he always
I like
this
take. I like this take.
If this is really his last season at Liverpool, one, I think it's stupid for Liverpool, to be honest. But if this is his last season and he is going in fit and rested and everything else, this might be one of the best Mo's that we've ever seen.
Completely agree, but I think Mo Salah was doing his agent a big favor there because the agent wants to get paid, Mo Salah and his family want to get paid, and Liverpool want to keep the best ever Liverpudlian who wore red in their team as well. And I think Mo Salah is well deserving of that honor and that title and that praise. I don't see a situation where they don't figure out Verge, Mo, and Trent at some point between now and Christmas. I can't see them, all three of their most important players, winding down their contract and potentially going away on free. That's just not how top, well-run clubs in the Premier League operate anymore. So I don't think this will be an issue in a couple weeks' time, but we're definitely seeing Mo Salah take his game to the next level. I mean, end of last season, there were concerns. There was that benching and shouting match on the sideline. This season, the only shouting he's doing is after scoring a goal or providing an assist because he is just banging it in and he is just lightning hot with that short haircut. I know Black Wolf is rating that his hairdo is the reason that Mo Salah is playing so transformatively well. Do you agree with that, Ryan? Or is there a tactical
Yeah, it's all aerodynamics, right? I mean, it's the same reason that guys shave their legs and swim. I think we know a couple people that can vouch for that in some group chats. But I do think, though, that, this is just, it's Mo being.
Next up, we got Everton at Villa. This is probably one of the most cupcake matches in the Premier League schedule at this point in time, with Everton just in absolute disarray. Let's get a prediction here. I think it's going to be 4-0 to Villa, but I'm a little concerned that Everton get a late goal. So I think this maybe is 3 or 4-1 to the home team. What say you, Brian?
I don't know if I've seen enough from Villa to predict them to score 4 goals. I see a 2-1 here. I don't think Villa are clicking at all cylinders. Leon Bailey is out of this one, so their width on the right side of the pitch is going to be severely hampered. It's a state of flux right now for this Villa team, who are also going to be going into UCL action for the first time. So I think 2-1 here. I think DCL nabs another goal and ruins the clean sheet.
Wow, no clean sheets for you or for Emi Martinez. That is a shocking prediction with the state of affairs at Everton. I don't hate it. I think you should start your Villa FPL assets without reservation for this match.
Yeah, that's actually a question I had for you. Right now, in my current starting lineup, I have Rodgers starting over ESR, and he's going to be my first bench. ESR is playing at home versus West Ham, but I just like the minutes. And honestly, I think Rodgers is very unlucky not to have a couple of assists just because Watkins has been out of form. He's created a couple big chances, and Watkins just hasn't bagged him.
Yeah, totally rate that strategy. And that's a perfect transition. We could tell you're a pro now, Brian, because that is the first of our best in real life matches. And we're really centering the spotlight on two derbies. West Ham at Fulham is a London derby. And then we have Arsenal at Spurs for the North London derby, the biggest derby in the match week. I think West Ham Fulham is going to be a cagey match. I think the visitors actually are going to top this one 2-1 to the Hammers. Do you have a prediction, Brian?
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun match. I think Fulkrig went down with a little injury as well. So I guess it's more Antonio minutes for West Ham, but Kudus and Bowen look fantastic as they always do. So Fulham give up a few chances. I think the Hammers come out swinging, trying to nail it down. So I think 3-1 to West Ham. And unfortunately for me, because I'm starting Jedi Robinson once again, but maybe he'll chip in with another cheeky 4 or 5 pointer because he's set up a few assists so far in my starting lineup.
Ryan,
Yeah.
what's your sense of that first London derby? Who you got? West Ham, Fulham? Who you putting your money on?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do favor West Ham. I mean, the quality, like Brian was just saying, the quality in that team is fantastic. I mean, Kudus is a fantastic player. I'm still pissed that they got him out of everybody. That United wasn't even in the mix. I think it was too easy of a pickup. But yeah, I mean, as a Robinson owner from day one, and even a lot of last year, this one's a little tough because I do want to see some sort of a return from him, of course, as we all do. But West Ham is definitely formidable in attack. The question, though, is I think there's still a little suspect in defense, and I think that there's still opportunity there. And I think if that's where we're going to get something, I think that is the best shot for Fulham to get some sort of a return, and for Robinson owners to walk away a little happy is going to be in that attack.
Yeah,
Rate
Bucks, I
that.
know you started with Muniz, but I think he's out of your side on Wildcard. Is that right?
Yeah, Muniz has made way, and I cannot be more happy about that reality. That guy is a XG and chance monster and a finishing bust and a half, to say the least. One
Three
good thing
games,
about,
small sample size,
yeah,
small
he
sample
stinks.
size.
He
No.
stinks.
He's definitely a good striker. I mean, last season we got to see a lot of it in that kind of
Eh.
debut, that period that he had. But I do think that this Fulham side, it's just not a great attacking side, is it? Like, I mean, there's some opportunity, but it's not the best. And we kind of have to keep that in mind with a young striker like Muniz, who has to bear the burden as a whole by himself. But there's too many good striking options this season, and like last,
Yeah,
I mean, you
that's
got to go for
good
someone else.
pragmatism. That's very pragmatic from both of you. And I see that Muniz is entering both of your humble payouts on PayPal and Cash Out and whatever those apps are these days. But the reality is that he has like 20 shots and 0 returns, whereas a true proven striker like Chris Wood has 4 shots and 3 goals on the season. So there's just levels to this shit. And as much as I want to put my faith in that Fulham run of fixtures, it's just not happening for them. So their team is very young and inexperienced, and they're trying to level up this season to be a potential fringe top 10 side. And so far, it's just not going according to plan, other than Robinson, who I think he's jumping off the page. He looks brilliant. He has the most successful tackles and most successful take-ons for any defender in the Big 5 leagues, despite playing one less match. So kudos to our American brethren there.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. Robinson, I mean, he's a player that I want at United really, really bad, to be honest. Fantastic both side defender, and that's not just American bias. He is actually good at defending and in attack. But what you were just saying there is exactly why I went with Chris Wood from the start of the season. So sorry to dig that one in a little
nice
bit.
gloat, nice humble brag right there, Ryan.
It is someone that between him and the Brighton boys, I think that you do have some better options around the same or even cheaper. So
Yeah, Brian successfully sandpapered me on the Chris Wood front, and I'm still recovering actively in all matters of life from that one. Let's go to the biggest match of the game week: Arsenal at Spurs. And I think this has tremendous FPL implications because Saka is one of the most sold players going into game week 4 because this is marked on the FDR, which is the fixture difficulty rankings, as a difficult fixture for Arsenal. Are Spurs defense a difficult opposition to go against? Let's ask our tactico here. Ryan, what say you?
Oh man, if we ask someone, I think he has a deep, deep hatred of the Spurs defense, and is very outspoken. Shout out to Dallas. But in this, I think that yeah, Spurs defense is not the best. Let's be honest. But when they do get all four of those main guys together with Udogi, with Van de Ven, with Romero, with Porro, I think it is a really good back line at that point. I think the stats. I was reading something that the amount of stats or like where they positioned it was a top 6 or something. I think it's about a top 6 defense with all four of them, and then without them, they were like 14th or 15th in the league. So the difference between when you have your first choice defenders and you don't is massive. But it's a North London derby; anything can happen anytime. So, and we've seen this every single time. But I do think Arsenal going solidly the favorites, especially going in with the form that they have, but without Rice, without Odegaard, without Marino, there's a lot of questions on what's going to be happening there with what Arteta's got to figure out too.
Yeah, definitely some injury concerns for them going into that fixture. And I think both teams score. So managers trying to figure out whether to play Poro or play Gabriel, etc. I still have faith that any of those guys could bang a 15-pointer, but I definitely see this one as a 2-1 type of feel given the injury concerns. And like when you bring in Partey and Jorginho, it's like, oof, this is very, very slow. It's a slow midfield. So I'm interested to see if any of the Spurs lads can hit on the counter.
I'll share some wisdom here. There is a 0% chance that Spurs keep a clean sheet in this match. Zero, like a donut that is going in my belly. There is no way that that is a clean sheet for them. I think Arsenal take this one 3-2. I think there are goals galore in this one. And I think the injuries actually help make this a more interesting match. Because I think if full strength Arsenal travel to Spurs in the state of where both these clubs are, I think that could be a shellacking towards the Reds. And I think the Gunners still have enough to pip this, but it's a much more exciting and back and forth match. 3-2 to the visitors.
And then lastly, let's just highlight we have Brentford traveling to the Etihad to play Manchester City. Captaincy shout once again for Mr. Erling Haaland coming off of back-to-back bleeping hat tricks. Can he go for 3 in a row? That would be just absolutely bonkers if he could. And Brentford's defense it's mids. I think it's even worse than mids. So I think a brace here for Erling seems pretty positive, right?
I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, you can never really bet against Erling too much, especially in the form that he's in right now. I mean, 7 goals in 3 games is just insane. It's madness. So
Best
yeah,
ever.
absolutely. You gotta say he has to be one of the captaincy picks, of course. I think him and Mo and a couple others. I think that there's a few, maybe a little bit more variety that you can have this week. But I think Holland is definitely in that conversation as one of the top choices.
My contrarian take here, though, is that I think Brentford score. And so I know a lot of managers on Wildcard are weighing up bringing in Evil Brian and Bomo, who we discussed on last episode at length. And I would not be afraid to run him out in my starting 11 for FPL purposes. I just think that when he plays and he's fit without Tony, he seems to find a way into FPL returns. And City's defense have been get-atable this season. They haven't been lock, stock, and smoking barrel like they have been in seasons past. So that is my contrarian take. I think this is 3-1 to the Citizens.
And I think
As
Brentford is one of the few teams that's won at the Etihad over the last couple seasons. I think it was maybe 2 seasons ago where they hit a couple on the counter and scored and beat them. So I think Rodri was missing in action in that game because that would have ruined his long 65 game streak or whatever. But they have the ability to hit on the counter. So we'll see if Mbomo, especially after his scintillating performance versus Southampton if he can deliver the goods, as managers are looking to bring him into their sides for their upcoming fantastic fixture run coming from Game Week 5 onwards.
I mean, you can never bet on him. He's made for these big matches. I was just shocked that nobody really went in for him aggressively this summer to try and pick him up. He's a fantastic winger, dash striker, inside forward kind of player. Yeah, I mean, if anybody's going to score, him and Visa are in fantastic form overall. But didn't Visa get hurt, or he's still good, right?
I think he's still good. He took a knock, but I think he's reportedly going to be okay for game week 4. He's essential. Those two, if Brentford don't have them, they could be in major trouble this season.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll dive into my wildcard draft as well as some community questions.
All right. We're back and we're here to talk about Bux's wild card. Let's start from the top and go to the bottom. Drop it low on the flow, Mr. Bux Bomb. What do you got for us in the front line so far? And what has really changed over the last week since you've been tinkering on international break?
Sure. So I know I shared my draft last week. It's hard to do this in an audio form that is interesting and digestible. So I will do my best.
Oh, come on, Bux. Just be better. People can listen. Just be better. And then that'll help.
Yeah, fair. We will level up to join you and Ryan at your high ranks so far this season. You're setting the standard. I guess the big dilemma for my wildcard 4 draft is whether I go threemium with Trent or I go just with Holland, Salah, and Trent, and then spread it around. And the reason I'm kind of weighing that up is just building out my team for the long haul and looking at transfers. The dilemma I'm having is I really want to have Holland and Salah for the long run. And I guess if I don't bring in a third big midfielder like Palmer or Saka from the get-go, it's going to be hard to maintain a structure where I have kind of both those two horses as my captaincy plays, and then my third premium is kind of my differential go for it guy that could help me soar up the ranking. So right now I'm just kind of debating whether to go full Bucks Wild with a threemium and Trent, or to go slightly more pragmatic and balanced, maybe skipping a player like Palmer for game week 4 and just starting with Mbomo and kind of saving some planned transfers in the mix. So interested to get your feedback before I dive into my current draft.
I mean, my immediate thoughts are that players like Eze and Mbomo, who are the talismans for their side, can offer about 75% of what Cole Palmer can do. And just to have that balance where when you're looking at captaincy, you're only going to captain Mo or Holland, right? You're never probably going to be in a spot where you need to captain Palmer. Like, it'd be a big differential, but the rest of your team just suffers so much. So I guess if you go for Palmer, you would go without Trent, right? And maybe you cut funds that way. But I think you're cutting too many corners, and then you're going to be so thin when you have one injury or two injury. Like, when those things start to pile up with European competitions going, you're going to be using transfers every week. And that's something you don't want to do because you're also trying to stay with the pack.
Yeah, suboptimal. But I guess for my team, the debate is really a budget forward Palmer and a 4.5 defender, or Mbomo, say maybe Isak and Robbo. And of course, it's kind of 3 versus 1. But Palmer has that ability to transcend any fixture. He can be fixture proof when he's in form. So interested to see what Ryan has to say on this debate.
Yeah, I was going to ask exactly that, what you just answered, of what are the players for the combination that it would make up. Oh man. I think it depends on the 4.5 front for the defender who you'd go with over there, but you could even, kind of change up things. You can go with a cheap enabling forward either way. And I think that there's plenty. I mean, from the Brighton strikers to Chris Wood, I think that there's enough kind of good options and coverage to make something happen there. And then then it really kind of becomes a 2v2 question of, Palmer in a 4.5, or do you balance it out with Mbumo and Robbo? I think depending on what you have for your Liverpool options, do you need Robbo? Is he high enough value? 6, he's definitely worth it, but can he do what you can have Palmer do? And I think if you ever need to go differential, you do have a shout at captaincy with Palmer. And I think, like you just said, he's the only one that I would bank on in that Chelsea side that is fixture and rotation proof to a large degree, pending, outside of injury.
Totally. I rate what both of you are saying in a big way. So let me just get into my draft right now, and let's not tease the listeners any longer. Currently, I have Raya and Fabianski in goal. The reason I'm on Raya, even though the fixtures don't look great for the next two, is I just want to be a move ahead for Arsenal. I eventually will want to have an Arsenal triple up, as much as that pains me to say and put out into the universe of content for FPL. I feel like the Arsenal triple up will be essential come game week 6, and I want to be there, and I want to not be spending all my free transfers just to get those guys in. So a little bit bigger in goal than I started the season with Raya alongside Fabianski. My back line currently has Trent and Robbo, and then I will be starting Lewis Dunk this week. And I'm debating, I might even start Rico Lewis as well and do 4 at the back just for game week 4 because the fixtures are tempting. And then I have Mascara as my cheap kind of throwaway pick. That's really just an homage to Dan and how much I love podcasting and bantering with the Black Wolf. So I had to have at least one Wolves player in there to blame all my misery on.
Hey, I've got him too, and I started the season with him, and I also started with Ryan Fabianski. So I mean, that's good company.
Well, that's probably why you're so high in the rank with all that grab assing that Mascara and you have been doing to start the season. You're grabbing the points wherever they sit.
If it gets you there, it gets you there.
Yeah. All right. So midfield right now, you've convinced me. I moved off my Palmer draft. I'm going to quote my non-Palmer draft. I have Mo Salah, Eze, Rogers, Mbomo, and former Chelsea lad Leslie Ogachukwu is my midfield right now. I guess my debate is if I'm going to play 4 at the middle in game week 4, or will I go 3 in the middle? And that will just depend on whether Rico Lewis or Mbomo gets the nod here. And then my front line is going to be Holland. Of course, I am not a Nolan manager. I never will be. I will wear my stubbornness with pride here in this regard. So he's going to be my captain going into game week 4 because he scores goals and gets FPL points. And then alongside him, I have João Pedro. I'm banking some nice price rises there with that lad. And my guy, this is just a Bucks pick. I do not encourage anyone else to follow my lead down this painful rabbit hole. I have gone Nico Jackson as my third striker. The fixtures for Chelsea are exceptional. There are no other strikers at Chelsea right now that are going to take game time from him from a starting perspective. So I'm opening myself up to tons of pain from a fan perspective and an FPL perspective, and I'm gone Nico Jackson as my Chelsea horse to ride for the next couple game weeks. I see, Brian, you are just containing the pain in your face right now and not doing a great job. Why am I hurting you here? I'm sorry.
No, interesting to see a Nico Jackson appearance in a side. I mean, I think as far as minutes, he is most nailed next to Palmer in that attack right now. We didn't sign anybody else in the window. We have all these other wingers that really can't play up top. So I think he's guaranteed to play 70 minutes every single match. So I do like the punt, and he's got a good understanding with Palmer. I feel like they've connected a few times in the past and will continue to do so. So it's interesting. I think at that price point as well, you're not too far away from grabbing Kai potentially if you were interested in a double Arsenal attack come game week 6 when they have their run of fixtures. So that kind of placeholder is interesting to me as well. So it's a fun shout.
All right, Ryan, what am I doing wrong here?
No, I'm just thinking through it. I like the move. I was actually looking at Jackson as a potential Chelsea option. If I was trying to go somewhere with it, I wanted to get someone from Chelsea because the fixture run isn't bad, but the more I look at it, the more I'm not 100% sold either. I think the Bournemouth fixture is definitely favorable. West Ham, leaky defense. So, I mean, there's definitely opportunity in here, but it's definitely a good 3-4 week, 4 week kind of play. And after that, I think pivoting over to like Havertz, I think if you can get there comfortably, I think that's the move. Do you have any money in the bank after all that?
I don't. So the way that I could massage funds out of my team is to go one of Eze or Mbomo and then plan to swap them later on. Or I could just skip Raya, and I've toyed with that, just going with the 4.5. My play style going back in history has never been to go with a premium goalkeeper. And I actually was toying with the idea of maybe skipping Raya and going Allison, and then I could
I
save
was
some money
just going
that
to
way.
suggest that.
So there's definitely ways to attack this. And if I skipped Raya, then I would probably just keep Gabriel in my team and I would play him in game week 6 and just bench him because I have Rico Lewis or Dunk in place to go instead for this game week and next. So definitely not at all locked on my wild card. So there's still a lot of tinkering to be done, and hopefully there'll be some more price changes because just the whole FPL game has kind of fallen asleep the last couple days.
Yeah, my last comment to you is just to look at what a game week 6 wildcard team is going to look like and what a game week 8 wildcard team is going to look like. Just to go down the line a little bit and see what like the ideal front three, for example, like that's something I'm doing right now. Looking at game week 6, I'm going to have probably Wissa, Holland, and Kai as my front three. And so you are a few moves away from what that template will be. And so just having not very many funds in like João Pedro at 5-5, like there you're not going to be able to downgrade him to any other playing forward. So where you're going to be able to find cash to put into those other slots is just like a little bit concerning to me with this structure. And you're playing Rodgers every week as well. So that could be, potential problem, but overall it's a good start. I think you got about 10 out of 15 positions ready to go and you got some more tinkering to do.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right, let's go to community questions. Enough about me. As much as I love me some me, let's talk about what can help other FPL managers in the community, specifically in hashtag FPLUSA with our mailbag.
Mailbag. Let's start with at FPL Masala. He wants to know, how are you planning on rotating your premium assets? So especially for Bucks on Wildcard, Saka versus Leicester in game week 6 looks possibly better than Salah versus Wolves. What are we thinking there, especially with your side, Bucks? Are you concerned about not having Saka in game week 6?
No. And I actually feasted a lot last season on swerving Saka. And I think that FPL managers might get away with it again this season just because Arsenal spread the points around in such a frustrating way. I mean, they're such a good team in real life, but for FPL, there's almost too many mouths to feed with who gets the points, and it's unpredictable game to game. So I actually think that Salah versus Wolves is I don't even think it's so close. I think Salah is just a more explosive FPL asset, and they're almost equal in quality of defense from an opposition standpoint. So I have no qualms against skipping Saka for game week 6 and just staying with Salah there.
Yeah, I kind of think I fully agree with you on that. Like, I do like the Arsenal players, but it's hard to nail down with a Holland and Salah lineup how you can fit Saka in comfortably. And then definitely hard to then see, like, okay, well, do you go with just Saka? Do you get Kai in there for game week 6? Which, Leicester at home, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away is a fantastic run. And I'm kind of left wondering too, like with this potential Odegaard injury, how long is he going to be out? A lot of people are saying it's probably just a week or two from initial thoughts, but we don't know yet. It's too soon to tell. Could this then throw off if Havertz has to drop into midfield? Could this throw off his form? He's been in incredible form since last season. We can't just, bank off of what's going to happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, and then you start getting UCL stuff around this time too. It's maybe a little too soon for me to worry about that rotation right now.
My hot take and hot snake here with Arsenal is that Havertz and not Saka is the most
Hot
essential
snake.
attacker.
Hot snake. What is going on here?
Yeah, it's snakes on a plane, snakes on a podcast here, because I think Havertz and not Saka is the most important Arsenal lad to target for those on Wildcard game week 4, game week 6, game week 8. Who gives a shit? Get Kai in and skip Bakayo. Let's go to our next question.
Which is also related to Arscast. So we have at Mike Gaiman fan. He wants to know, who do you think scores more over the next 5 game weeks? Double Arsenal defense or double Arsenal attack? So very interesting question. And I think last season I went with double Arsenal attack in a lot of periods during the season as a differential, and it did not go that well. Let me tell you, those defensive clean sheets really piled up last season. So I think Arsenal's been a little bit lucky to have kept those couple clean sheets. I think they could easily be sitting with 1 instead of 2, but small subset of data. What do you guys think here?
I mean, personally, can you fit, 3 Arsenal assets in? Yeah, I don't know right now. I think, for the next 2 game weeks, I think it's largely a skip if you can, maybe 1 player, maybe 2. For us on Raya, I think that's where we're just going to say I'm fine just having 1 Arsenal attacker for the next 2 weeks. For game week 6, that's where I want to go in heavy, and at that point, I think I would favor the attack, but the defense is definitely going to get 2 or 3 clean sheets in those 3 weeks, like no doubt.
Not surprising, I'm on the other side of this coin. I think the set and forget nature of the Arsenal defense is just like a warm blanket in a cold breeze. You just know that they're going to start. You know that they're going to have a very high percentage likelihood of keeping the clean sheet. And specifically Saliba and Ben White and Gabriel, they offer a little extra with the bonus points. So I just feel like there's potential for a mega haul there, and there's more certainty that there's that floor is there. So I I think it's probably easier to fit in the double Arsenal defense, which is what makes me lean there.
All right, lightning round for a few more questions here from our FPL community. At Holy Pinto, aka Eamon, he wants to know, which defender should he put in for Lewis Hall, 4.5 or less? Not many sexy options right now, so I'm curious to hear what Ryan thinks, since we've already heard some of Bux's thoughts on Wildcard.
This is exactly my issue. I have Lewis Hall went in on him early on that.
Oh, me too. Me
really
too. He's sitting there rotting on my bench. Rot away.
Not loving it right now. And this is one of the things that, while it's a minor inconvenience, it is an inconvenience. I do think that there's a little bit of credibility in the thought of going for Mazraoui from United. I think with Southampton there, I think he's not a bad shout, but he might have just bumped up to 4.
Oh, the Maserati. Okay.
Yeah. No, he's still 4-5. And I think if you can get someone nailed, like Dunk, I think it's a good option. Honestly, I don't even hate the thought of, as lateral as it might feel, going to Livramento. And I think Leif Davis is a great shot from Ipswich as well. If they can, he's an attacking left back more than anything. He got a good amount of assists and goal involvements last season in the championship. Might be an option there as well.
Yeah, Leif Davis is fun. I think a lot of these guys are just boring, right? Like Konsa, boring. Like Brighton, pretty boring for defenders. So we really want to see some more data and have some more 4.5 fullbacks emerge. So I do like the Leif Davis shout there. All right, next up, at FPL_Hunt, our man Connor in front of the show. He wants to know thoughts on Havertz or Watkins on game week 4 wild card. This one's now very interesting, because if he's going to play deep with Odegaard being injured, then maybe you do take the punt for Watkins for a few game weeks, and then when Odegaard comes back, then you can just downgrade Watkins straight to Havertz. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think you answered the question. I think you go Watkins now, Havertz later, and you roll with the fixtures and just kind of let the transfers play out in a natural way. And you just have Watkins for the next 3 and then swap right to Havertz, and you have some money in the bank there, hopefully after the transaction is all said and done. And even better if you have some FPL points in your pocket for that move. I like the Watkins and I think he'll probably be more fit than we've seen so far. So fit Watkins in this Villa team going against the dregs of Everton. I think there are FPL points there to be had.
I would maybe even look at Bux's option of Jackson. A little out there shout.
I'm trying to win, Ryan. You can't be telling everyone else to do the same thing because then
Hey, you
I'm
just
not going
told
to win. No one listens. It's just me and my echo chamber here with you two good looking lads on the West Coast. Let's get the fuck out of here. I think this was a great podcast. There's not a lot to talk about with no game week to recap and kind of the
Still
great
went an
unknown.
hour. Still went an hour long.
Great unknown in game week 4, which is to come. We have an amazing free to enter podcast mini league, which is super competitive. Code T88F87, free kit and regular shout outs to the top manager, and the overall winner will get that free kit at the end of the season. We've also mentioned at FPL USA Leagues. If you live in the US and want to get involved, message our co-host Black Wolf on socials. Ryan, tell the listeners where they can find such a great FPL manager and a better guest host.
You guys are too kind. But yeah, Twitter's, or now X, I guess you could say, is the best place to find me analyzing FPL. Do a lot of fun transfer speculation and FPL stuff, a lot of Manchester United content, and a little bit of other fantasy games, UCL and Bundesliga in there too. So it's a good time. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, not to mention he is the guru behind some of the imagery for our FPL league. So love to see that.
Thank you, guys.
Ryan, we got to get you in the UCL competition this season. With that, it's been a great podcast. You can find us at FPL USA Press Play on all your favorite podcast platforms and on socials. I'm Bux. That was Brian and Ryan. We'll have Black Wolf back in action for the Game Week 4 recap and Game Week 5 preview next week. Thanks, everyone.